Okay. Welcome back to Arifureta Anime Review, episode number 8. This one discussing the 16th episode series, Black and White. Now, I did look up basically the pages from book 5, what they adapted for this episode. And they actually skipped over a small chunk of the book. They're probably going to adapt this one next week, the rest of this chapter. Because they only covered pages 203, not 203, 103 to 124. They skipped over like 9 pages. Yeah, it was like, let's see. Because they resumed with, I think it was like 137. Yeah, 137. So they skipped over roughly 13 pages, and then they go straight toward the end of the chapter, which at that point they pretty much covered the last like 13 pages of the chapter. And my guess is presumably next week, the very next episode, probably airing in about 4 days, that will probably finish the chapter up and go into chapter 2. That's my personal guess. Though there's a small portion of the episode that actually is not from chapter 1. As far as I can tell, it isn't. It's basically focused. Now, the last little bit of the episode, before I get to the main chunk of the episode, they're stopped with the hero, where he's talking to somebody and he really wants her back. Who? Katari, his childhood friend who's got a thing for this topic. She's got a thing for Hajime. Yeah, I'm not sure what part of the book that one's from. It's not from chapter 1. I know that for sure. In the case of the stuff with Seizuku, that is sort of in the way her and Lily stuff. That's a meanwhile, while all this with Hajime's going in this episode. That whole scene, now the stuff with the hero, that's like roughly just a couple minutes. The scene before that one, that's roughly about 5 minutes. While the page they adapted for the big action sequence of the episode, one that took the pages 103 and 124, that's most of the episode, which that picks up like right where the last episode left off, where Hydra does survive that big explosion that pretty much ended last week's episode, and he is damaged. Basically, his arm is scorched, and Yu is the one who saves him, gives him basically a potion to treat him, and they're there for a bit, and then they're attacked by lasers from the sky. Well, it turns out these are actually from dragons. Yep, they're from dragons. And of course, Yu is basically fed up. Of course, To was telling Shia this because she really wants to go to Hajime because, well, all the girls have got a thing for him because she wants to be with him. So pretty much, like, To doesn't know because basically, Gaki were defending her. So they fend out for quite a while, and then we finally see who's firing these dragons, who's in charge of these dragons. It's Freed, one of the demon generals who. He's a demon general who said he's God's apostle. Probably Iat's apostle. And, of course, Hajime is like, why'd you just introduce yourself? You're being quite rude. Could you introduce yourself, please? Because he has no idea who the heck he is. And then he introduced himself. Which, of course, he was just last seen in the anime just 2 episodes ago. And here he is now. I mean, he was briefly seen during the last, like, couple minutes. I would say the last like couple minutes of the first episode of the season, and now we're back here with him, where he launched a full scale assault on them for quite a while, and then Tao having a flashback to her childhood. Her father basically says she has to keep the whole thing, and she's like, they change it. They don't mention Dragonborn in the episode, in the book. That words made for the anime. Basically, she's a black dragon. This actually is the first time since her debut she's actually gone to this particular form. Because she hasn't gone to this form since they first met. So she shows up, and of course, while Haido is basically battling him, and of course brings out a freaking bazooka, a multi-arm bazooka. She ends up saving him also, and he runs out of energy. And then, of course, this is also a minor change here. They actually changed the name of the thing he destroys. They changed the name of it. In the book, they refer to it as the Keystone. In the anime, they refer to it as the Cornerstone. Which, to me, makes no sense. Why would a volcano have a cornerstone? Well, the way he describes, and this actually is true in the book, too. Apparently, despite the fact that this volcano has been around for a long time, there apparently is no record of this thing ever erupting. So basically, he activated its eruption sequence. And then he flies out with his men, after basically a very grueling battle with Hajime. And of course, he opens up these big steel doors above in the ceiling of this like lava area, and he flies up to the, and Tao, who takes Haijima's ring, and of course she blasts her way right through. Though basically, this is Haijima's crate ring. Allows her to fly the surface and using like able to get out and basically use the crosslink to destroy Free. Excuse me. Of course, she's wondering what the girls are up to. Meanwhile, because in the book, basically what happens, like she actually goes back in there. Because in the anime, they don't do that. They're probably going to save it for Nick. That's probably a good point, basically, for him to do a cut to where you see Sakura. I'm trying to see if I pronounce her name correctly. It is Koki. Though before this, we actually do briefly see Lily, the princess of the kingdom, where she's basically wondering what in the world her father's up to. Where she runs into him and says, "Father, where are you going?" And he doesn't say anything to her at all. Nope, he doesn't say anything. The soldiers are basically look like they're not in the right mind. It look like they're brainwashed. If you're wondering if this is from the book, I don't think it is. Not that I can think of, unless they skipped over something. Like unless they skipped over something, I don't really know. So she walks outside and she sees Kaguri training with her sword. And of course, there's a flashback. Of course, there's actually two flashbacks here. First, you have a flashback to episode 4, I believe it was, of the first season, and once again, we have a flashback to those last few episodes that happened toward the end of the season that came from book 4, where you have Haijima's class battling a demon, a female demon. And of course, she's basically regretting her getting injured, so she trains like crazy. And then a cat shows up. Yes, the cat plays with it a while, just teases it, and then it turns out the cat is actually Lily. Yes, and they chat for a bit, and a lot of the conversation is from the book. They do cut bits and pieces of this conversation out, which doesn't really hurt the scene at all. They do keep it in the line where the church, in the series anyways, is considering branding Haijima a heretic. They actually cut the bit out where they can't brand him simply because he disobeyed their orders. It's probably to other rumors basically abound, which I'm sure Haijima probably does not want to be branded as a heretic. If he does, he probably is going to go on a killing spree, probably massacre the whole freaking church. That's probably what's going to happen. He's probably going to kill whoever's in charge, because that's Haijima. He probably would do that. And, well, then we have that little scene with the hero, and that's the episode. I gotta say, this actually is really good. Like, surprisingly, for the stuff they adapted for that battle sequence, like, for those 22 pages, they surprisingly kept everything in. From what I can tell from the book, like, nothing was cut. Like, that whole sequence, which took up, I'd say about 15, 16 minutes of the episode. I'd say most of this damn thing. They kept pretty much everything in. They only made 2 small changes here. Like, they changed a word, and I think that was it. Just they changed one word. Mostly put like everything from that section is completely there. It's like one small thing has changed, and aside from that, that's simply it. In the case of the next scene, which takes a few minutes of the episode, they basically went to a little bit of Anne Ritual territory with Lily, and I'll have to point out afterwards, is from the book, though they do in fact cut out some portions of the conversation, which not really a big issue with me. I don't necessarily have a really big problem with it. It would be nice if they included this, but they probably could not have. They probably did want to do this scene, but my guess is the reason why they cut lines of the conversation now, and this is my personal guess, time. They probably had to fill that crunch time, and they probably were running out of time. They had to trim this conversation down, and I would say they kept some good meat there when it comes to this conversation, but not the entirety of it per se, but as nonetheless. The stuff with the hero, I'm not really sure where that's from, because that's not from chapter 1. That may be from chapter 2, I don't know, because chapter 2 looked like focus on Haijima. Well, yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for this particular review. I gotta say, damn good episode of Arifureta. Like, I know about the complaints that the first season did, basically around the line, basically people's problems with the first season, where they cut way too much stuff out, and they had problems with the animation. So far, I'm only 3 episodes into this. They did confirm the season to be 12 episodes. I believe so, yes. If it was like 12, 13, fine. Just don't do 4 books again. I think 3 books would be perfectly fine. Though, in just 3 episodes, they haven't finished chapter 1 yet. They haven't finished it. They're probably going to adapt it next week. It's possible to say at least they're probably going to finish chapter 1, which I don't think would take too long per se, and they probably go straight into chapter 2. Now, if you're curious to how long is book 5 per se, like if you count the back stuff here and the afterword, this book is roughly 300. There's some bonus stories in here too, but if you think about the main story per se, that stops at that pretty much stops at page 309. And like if you think about it, the anime is only covered, like if you wonder how much is covered in just 3 episodes in this book, they've only covered almost that amount. That's simply the first chapter of the book. But there's still a small section where they have to adapt that probably next week per se. Yes. But that's going to be pretty much it for this particular review. Next is going to be Black Clover. And then another anime based on my light novel, How Realists Overwrote the Kingdom. Okay, next video. Bye.